This week in the U.S. Senate, there was unanimous, consent. There was 100-0 passage of this Hong Kong authorization bill, which at the last second, the mandatory sanctions against Hong Kong institutions and against individuals that are suppressing freedom in Hong Kong was taken out at the last minute. I want to go back and I want to ask you very bluntly, for our global audience, and particularly people here in the United States, when you say the rape of Hong Kong, tell people exactly what has happened in Hong Kong and why you use a term that's so provocative as the rape of Hong Kong.
Last year, you saw all the street riots and the demonstration. So on police record, 10,000 kids were arrested so far. But according to our inside information, more than 20, even 30,000 kids were arrested and sent over to China into some concentration camp. They were tortured, attacked, raped, and some even murdered. And we will never know the whole truth. The communists are very good in hiding evidence. So last year was really the raping of Hong Kong, the young kids. Now, in a few days, they're going to pass this national security law. And if that passes, they can send their police, prosecutors, and judges into Hong Kong. And that will be the beginning of ethnic cleansing, very much similar to the Holocaust, because they can arrest people and then either go through their own court system or even send them back to China. So that would be the end of all Hong Kong's freedom, religious, political, speech, everything. So that's why I'm very grateful for passing of this Hong Kong autonomy law. But to be honest with you, I don't think it's going to stop that law. We need to do something drastic, such as cutting off all US dollar in and out of Hong Kong, in order to show the communists that you mean business. So right now they are getting away with murder, right? These people died of pandemics, are in fact being murdered worldwide, and we cannot allow them to get away with murder.
Guo, let me just stop you. I want to go to one thing. Miles Guo and I started broadcasting on G News and GTV on the 4th of June last year of 2019, the first demonstrations. And Miles was saying early on that the police, and particularly as they put these PLA members into Hong Kong, they're arresting these kids and sending them to mainland. I just want to make sure I've got this straight from you. Are you saying that the Chinese Communist Party, you believe, has arrested 20 to 30,000 of these young people and shipped many of them to prisons or to jails in mainland China without the rule of law, without due process, without everything that was guaranteed by the British and essentially the United States in the handover, that these kids have been sent to mainland China, that they are in either prison or jail? Some have been raped, some have been tortured, some have been beaten, and some have even been killed. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. I agree with Miles. His information is probably the best in the world on China, right? He is like a hub. Everybody give him information. And so far, sometimes he's off in timing a little bit, but never in accuracy. So from my information also matched the same. A lot of kids were shipped to China. And in fact, today, I just want everybody to know, today, there were trucks, military trucks, entering Hong Kong. And with a lot of military people, military police, today, right now, at this moment.
Guang, let me ask you, I got to ask you this question. Hong Kong is one of the great cities in the world. It's the third most important capital market in back of Wall Street in New York City, the city of London. In London, Hong Kong is the great third capital market in the world. How can it possibly be that Miles Guo and yourself have been saying that these kids have been shipped, they've been beaten, they're in jails in mainland China, They've had no due process. Now you're saying there's military trucks in Hong Kong. How can that be in the world's media? We don't hear this story from the world's media. You don't hear from the Times of London. You don't hear from the Guardian. You don't hear from the New York Times, Washington Post. They have little bits of information, but they're not covering this as a narrative. Explain to people how the BBC and all the great organs of the West can be avoiding this story.
The communist Chinese are the best in covering up. Like Hong Kong, all the media, whether newspaper or TV or radio, everybody sport except Apple Daily and Epoch Time. These are the only two independent media left. And worldwide, they pay off everybody, like CNN, BBC, you name it. They have way to pay off everybody, so you don't get all the information. But most totalitarian regimes does the same. You remember, nobody knew about the Jewish Holocaust until they saw the gas chamber and then the dead body. You understand? We cannot wait for evidence. By the time you see the evidence, many people are dead. So same thing with the U.S. 120,000 people have died, and there are going to be 200,000. And people pretend it was an accident. So and waiting for evidence. By the time you have evidence, it could be another 200,000. Who knows? So you need to protect yourself and take drastic measure.
Guang, UN. I want to ask one more question about what the West should do. I've called this that Hong Kong is the Czechoslovakia of this crisis, that it's 1938, and that we can't have a Munich, we can't have a Neville Chamberlain, we cannot under any circumstances basically allow this to continue. We can't look the other way. What would you recommend as a senior Hong Kong businessman and a capitalist? What would you recommend that the United States and the West must do to avoid a catastrophe in Hong Kong?
Cut off the US dollars in and out. Give them notice in 30 days. So all your money can come back to the States. And some of our money can also come back to the United States stock market. And then that's Hong Kong. If in another 30 days, they continue to behave like this, cut off all the US dollar in and out of the People's Republic of China. That's the way to deal with them. Decouple with them, because they mean harm. They want to get rid of you. You must get rid of them first.
If you did that, Guang, the argument is, and the CCP's making this argument and their allies on Wall Street, if you did what you and Miles Guo say is necessary in Hong Kong, it will hurt the Hong Kong people. It will hurt the young people. It'll hurt the little guy that the billionaires will make out, but it's really going to hurt the people. What's your response to that?
We are willing to pay the price to get freedom.
Elmer, this is Jack Maxey. I just want to interject that I admire you so much, and I've got tears in my eyes too, my friend. And we support you. And I wonder maybe we could segue to a little bit. We've only got a minute or so in this segment before our break, but could you talk a little bit about how important it is to get these Hong Kong students university spots in America?
In fact, all we need is an executive order from President Trump to allow the kids to get a visa and apply to school without their arrest record. Because with the arrest record, very hard to get a visa and very hard to get to any college. They are very good students. They know how to, they can be treated as any other US students.
Well, we should bring them in. And listen, guys, we only have about 60 seconds left before the break, but we're going to come back here and we're going to continue talking about this. What's so important for our American audience is all of us are wound up with this with a lot of emotion, because when you see the bravery of these young kids And you know what the result is. I mean, we're talking about life and death here, people. This is a great moral struggle for the whole entire world to free us from the dark star of the CCP. And I want everybody out there who's listening to look at Elmer and see the pain in his eyes and understand his bravery. And all of us should take his lead and follow his example, because this is the great moral crusade of our generation to free the world from this criminal organization called the CCP. We're going to get some of our sponsors in, and we'll be right back. Thanks so much.
Elmer, I want to go to this project that you're working on now about the criminality of the Chinese Communist Party. You call it a crime organization, a mafia. This is what Miles Guo has been talking about for many years. But people say that you and Miles Guo are too radical, are too hard, or too harsh, that you're not practical, that the Chinese Communist Party is actually the legitimate government of China and the legitimate government of the Chinese people. Why do you say the opposite? Why do you say it's a criminal organization? Why do you say it's a mafia?
In the last 71 years, they have committed more than 15 crimes against humanity. And in fact, right now with this three-month-old baby that they have forced abortion, way over 1 billion unnatural death in the last 71 years. And somehow the world let them get away. And they were so good in hiding evidence. That's why you are never going to find anything what happened in Wuhan. Never. So they're so good. And I was listening to your June 4th show, and suddenly you were arguing between terrorists or criminal, and you picked criminal. And I said, great. I remember how Giuliani cleaned up New York City, all the crime families, using this RICO Act, and how he wiretapped all those criminals, and then whoever is related, all these members of the crime family, all automatically became criminal. So I'm using that on the CCP, and I believe it's going to work. So I saw a few congressmen last week, and they are in full support. We want, and they suggest the name Criminalized CCP Act. All right, that's the law. I think it's a good name. And then, so I'm going to use two routes. One is legislation, which is I'm working right now in Capitol Hill, and the other one I think we should sue them in court. And you know Mr. Giuliani well, and I hope he can support us because he is the inventor of this RICO law. And we can either go through using federal prosecutors, and I'm suggesting we form an alliance with your Rule of Law Foundation, because that's what it means, rule of law. We should go after them, maybe at a class action, then every Chinese who suffer can sign up to become a member of this class action, and we go to a federal court. We sue them, and money is secondary. Important thing is they must be named as a criminal organization, and all their 90 million members must be named as criminals, so that they will leave the party in droves and no new blood will ever join, because they should be subject to the same sanction, the most severe sanction, like the Magnitsky Act. So this is why I'm proposing. I'm going to stay here as long as I need to make this work. This is using law to destroy the CCP. That's the objective of my visit here.
Elmer, I just want to make sure I'm clear about this. You're saying that you're going back over time on this project, looking over 71 years of the rule of the Chinese Communist Party over the Chinese people. And you say that there are 15, you're going to present that there are 15 crimes against humanity that have been perpetrated by the Chinese Communist Party. Do I hear that correctly?
Absolutely. And everyone is crime against humanity.
I want to go to one other thing. You said that all 90 million members, and people in the United States are just coming to this understanding, of the 1.4 billion people in China, there's only 90 million that are in the Chinese Communist Party. And you are saying that you're going to make the case and you're going to help work with trying to get the attention of federal prosecutors, either through working with Rudy or other people, to try to make the case that all 90 million members of the Chinese Communist Party in China are criminals?
Absolutely. You join a criminal, you join a gang, you are a gangster. That's the understanding. And that's how Rudy Giuliani cleaned up New York. So New York is now livable. I used to come at 70s, 80s. It's not livable. It's terrible. Pornography everywhere. And now it's a livable city, very nice city.
One other thing I want to go through is to talk about this idea of yours of actually cutting off the money to this criminal organization. With Wall Street being in business with this mafia, with the corporations of the world being in this business with this mafia, with the city of London being in business with this mafia, how do you possibly expect the ability to actually attack them as a criminal organization or criminal institute if all the money centers in the world and all the banks in the world and all the big corporations in the world are prepared to kowtow to this criminal organization? How do you expect to win?
The Wall Street, I don't care, Goldman or Morgan, once that CCP is a criminal organization, whatever contract these investment bankers sign with them, on the other side will be a CCP member, a communist member. And I don't think anybody dares to sign an agreement with a man who is under sanction. This is very simple. You don't do business with anyone who's under sanction. So I believe, of course, I'm not waging a war or anything, but a kinetic war. But at least whoever do business with China or any communist-related company or organization will consider whether they are breaking the law or not. I believe there's such a thing as secondary sanction.
We get time for about two more questions. One I've got to get to. Something you said earlier about forced abortions and the CCP as a criminal organization. Tell the world what you mean by that. What's a forced abortion, and how has the Chinese Communist Party forced young women to have abortions?
Since the 80s, they have this one-child policy, all right? And anytime you have more than one child, regardless of how old the baby in the womb, they actually take out the baby alive. And the baby would be still, moving, and put it in the corner, and I believe the number is over 400 million since the 80s. Babies, they murdered. I'm not talking about normal abortion. I'm talking about forced abortion. They actually catch you and then actually go reach in and grab the baby out. That's what they do. Sorry, I have to be so raw.
Last question. The CCP makes the argument to governments. They make the argument to financial institutions. They make the argument all over that the Chinese people are not ready for democracy. The Chinese people are not ready for rule of law. The Chinese people are not ready for freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of assembly. They're so backward and uneducated and chaotic that if the Chinese Communist Party is not there, Elmer, the nation will devolve into chaos and civil war, and there's no alternative. What say you, sir?
You believe in the communists, you die. That's what Navarro said. All right? They lie, you die. That's the result. It's so obvious. Look at how many people died. Because they lie, they cover up the truth. All right? And delay the reporting. Everything they do, all the numbers they gave are nothing but a lie. We should listen, but we should never believe.
Elmer, how do people...
Okay, we have 1 minute left, gentlemen.
Yeah, Jack, find out just how Elmer, if he has a Twitter feed or how people get more access to these projects he's working on.
Elmer's Jack, you could give us your Twitter handle.
I'll supply to you. My email address is elmeryuen@gmail.com.
Hashtag War Room Pandemic,
Elmer.
Jack. I want to make sure everybody's getting in there. Hashtag War Room Pandemic. I want to hear everybody's voices on this. And Jack, when you go to break, we're going to return. We've got Miles Guo. It's a double hitter today. Elmer Yuen and Miles Guo on the criminality of the Chinese Communist Party and what they've done to the Chinese people.
It's unbelievable, and I want everybody to stay tuned. Go to hashtag War Room Pandemic. We're getting a lot of feedback. I think people are just overly impressed by just the courage, the moral courage of Elmer Yuen. You give everybody heart. Back in a minute.